Welcome to Kool Legends, History, Stories, World, your gateway to the untold stories, legends, and real history that shaped our world. Today, we embark on an extraordinary journey through the Philippines. From its ancient beginnings and mystical barangays, through centuries of empire and revolution, to the vibrant nation it is today. What secrets lie beneath the island's shimmering seas? How did a small archipelago defy great empires and rise as a proud nation? Join us as we uncover legends of heroes, epic battles, cultural fusions, and the unbreakable spirit of the Filipino people. Whether you are a history buff, curious traveler, or someone who loves captivating true stories, this 2-hour deep dive will keep you hooked, revealing fascinating details you never knew. Stay with us until the end, because the Philippines story is not just history, it's a legend waiting to be discovered. Hit that subscribe button now and ring the bell, so you never miss a legend, a mystery, or a story from Kool Legends, History, Stories World. The real history of the Philippines. From ancient beginnings to the modern nation, what if I told you that the story of the Philippines is far more incredible, complex, and captivating than any history book you've ever read? A story filled with ancient legends, powerful empires, fearless heroes, heartbreaking struggles, and an unbreakable spirit that has shaped one of the most unique nations in the world. From the first footsteps on these islands thousands of years ago, to the fiery revolutions, colonial battles, and the rise of a proud, modern Filipino identity, this is the untold story of the Philippines. Stay with me, and discover the legends, truths, and mysteries that have made the islands what they are today. You'll be surprised, inspired, and moved. And before we start, don't forget to subscribe to KOOL Legends, History, Stories, World for more powerful stories from around the globe. Part 1. The Dawn of the Islands. Ancient Origins and Early Peoples. To truly understand the story of the Philippines, we must journey back tens of thousands of years, to a time when these islands were wild, untamed, and waiting for their first human footsteps. Picture a vast archipelago of over 7,600 islands, scattered like jewels across the Pacific Ocean. Lush forests stretching as far as the eye can see, mountains reaching skyward, rivers weaving like silver threads through the land. This is the stage for the earliest chapters in the Philippine story, a story shaped by migration, survival, and cultural birth. The earliest settlers, the Negritos. Archaeological evidence reveals that humans have inhabited the Philippine Islands for at least 50,000 years. The first people to arrive were the Negritos, small-statured, dark-skinned hunter-gatherers, who likely came from Southeast Asia. These early Filipinos were extraordinary survivors. They lived in caves, dense forests, and coastal areas, hunting wild animals, gathering fruits and roots, and crafting simple stone tools. The Taban Caves in Palawan are among the most important archaeological sites in the Philippines. Here, scientists discovered remains dating back 47,000 years, including tools and fragments of human bones. Imagine the life of these Negritos, walking barefoot through thick jungles, listening to the songs of birds and rustle of leaves, living closely with the land and nature. Their presence laid the foundation for the complex human story that would follow. Waves of migration, the Austronesian expansion. Around 4,000 years ago, a major migration reshaped the Philippine archipelago. The Austronesian peoples began arriving by sea from Taiwan and southern China. Unlike the Negritos, these settlers brought new technologies, polished stone tools, pottery, weaving skills, and most importantly, advanced maritime knowledge that allowed them to sail between islands with ease. This was the dawn of Filipino culture as we know it today, a vibrant blend of traditions, languages, and customs. These Austronesians established villages and barangays, small communities, developed rice, farming, and fishing techniques, and began trading with neighboring islands and kingdoms. Their arrival created a mosaic of diverse ethnic groups, Tagalog, Visayans, Ilocanos, Kapampangans, and many others. Each with unique languages and traditions, but connected by shared ancestry and seafaring heritage. Early trade networks. The Philippines as a crossroads of Asia. Far from being isolated, the Philippine Islands quickly became an active participant in regional trade and cultural exchange. By the first millennium, AD, local chiefs and traders sailed the seas in barangays, large wooden boats capable of long-distance voyages. They traded gold, pearls, tortoise shells, and exotic forest products with traders from China, India, Arabia, and even as far as Persia. Chinese ceramics, dating back to the Tang and Song dynasties, have been found in archaeological sites throughout the Philippines, a testament to centuries of thriving commerce. The islands absorbed ideas, religions, and cultural influences, creating a melting pot where Hindu, Buddhist, and Islamic beliefs mingled with indigenous animism. In the southern islands, especially Mindanao and Sulu, Islam arrived peacefully through trade around the 14th century, planting seeds for powerful sultanates to emerge. The power of the barangay social and political organization. Life in ancient Philippines was organized around the barangay, a small community of families united by blood, tradition, and allegiance to a chief known as the barangay was more than just a village. It was a social system with laws, customs, and governance. The Datu held authority over land, justice, and warfare. Barangays often formed alliances or confederations, creating larger polities for mutual defense and trade. Archaeological finds of gold jewelry, pottery, and weaponry reveal a society rich in culture and artistry. The famous golden Mananggul jar, discovered in Palawan, dates back to 890 to 710 BC. This intricate burial jar depicts the soulless journey to the afterlife, a powerful symbol of early Filipino spirituality and belief in life beyond death. Myth, legend, and oral tradition. For thousands of years, Filipinos passed their history and wisdom not in written texts, but through stories, songs, and rituals. Legends like the story of Bethula, the supreme god who created the universe, and tales of Maria Makiling, a mountain spirit who guards the forests, have been handed down from generation to generation. These myths and oral histories are more than just stories. They are the heart and soul of Filipino identity, linking past to present, nature to people, and man to the divine. Even today, many of these legends are alive in festivals, dances, and folk traditions, reminding us of our deep roots. So here, in the mists of time, the story of the Philippines begins. With ancient peoples braving the wild, maritime pioneers connecting the islands to the world, and rich cultures flourishing long before foreign ships ever arrived. This foundation of resilience, adaptability, and rich cultural tapestry set the stage for the great chapters yet to come. As we journey deeper into history, you will meet heroes, witness revolutions, and explore the spirit that continues to define the Filipino people. Stay with me, because the story has just begun. Part 2. The Age of Barangays. Early kingdoms and social structure. As the centuries passed, the scattered villages and settlements across the Philippine archipelago evolved into more complex social structures. These early societies were no longer just isolated communities, they had become flourishing barangays, small yet sophisticated polities that governed themselves with established customs and leaders. Welcome to the Age of Barangays, where local kings ruled, culture blossomed, and early Filipino civilization began to take form. What is a barangay? The word barangay comes from the term balangay, which means boat in many Austronesian languages. This name reflects the maritime roots of the Filipino people, who originally traveled from island to island by sea. A barangay was a small community, often consisting of 30 to 100 families, who lived in close-knit kinship groups. Each barangay was led by a dotu, a chief or leader respected for his wisdom, bravery, and leadership. The dotu was more than a ruler. He was a judge, a warrior, and a custodian of customs and traditions. His word was law, but it was balanced by the council of elders and the consent of the people. Barangays operated autonomously but frequently allied with others for trade, defense, and political power, forming confederations or loose kingdoms. Social structure of the barangay. Inside the barangay, society was organized hierarchically, but with fluid relationships that emphasized loyalty and respect. At the top was the dotu and his family, the ruling class who owned the land and controlled resources. Below the dotu were the maharlika, the noble warrior class. These warriors defended the barangay and often led raids or wars against rival communities. Then came the timawa, the free commoners, farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, who were the backbone of the barangay's economy. At the bottom were the alipin, or dependents and servants. Their status was not necessarily permanent slavery, but a form of debt, bondage, or servitude, often temporary and based on circumstances. Despite this hierarchy, kinship and family ties often blurred strict social divisions, creating a complex and dynamic society. The barangay economy. Trade, agriculture, and craftsmanship. The economy of the barangays was diverse and vibrant. Farming was the mainstay, rice paddies carved into terraced hillsides, root crops harvested from the forests, and abundant fishing from the surrounding seas. Beyond subsistence, many barangays specialized in crafts and trade. Skilled artisans created pottery, weaving metalwork, and intricate gold jewelry that became symbols of wealth and status. Trade networks extended far beyond the islands. Local traders exchanged goods with Chinese merchants, Arab traders, and even Indian and Malay traders, importing silk, ceramics, spices, and beads. The bustling port of Butuan in Mindanao became famous for its balangay boats, which sailed as far as Borneo in China. This early commerce laid the groundwork for the Philippines' enduring role as a crossroads of cultures and trade in Southeast Asia. Early political alliances and conflicts. Though many barangays coexisted peacefully, the archipelago was also a land of conflict and shifting alliances. Wars and raids between barangays were common, often motivated by control of trade routes, resources, or political dominance. These conflicts were waged with traditional weapons. The campion, a long sword, krees, wavy blade, bows and arrows, and spears, with warriors known for their bravery and tactical skill. Some barangays formed confederations for mutual defense. The Lacanate of Tondo near Manila and the Kingdom of Manila were among the most powerful in Luzon. In the south, the Sultanate of Sulu and Sultanate of Maguineo grew in influence, trading with Muslim traders and spreading Islam peacefully through alliances and intermarriage. Religion, beliefs, and culture in the age of barangays. Spiritual life was deeply rooted in animism, the belief that everything in nature has a spirit or soul. Filipinos revered anatos, ancestral spirits who could protect or punish the living. Rituals and offerings were made to these spirits to ensure good harvests, health, and protection from harm. Shamans called Babalan or Catalonan served as spiritual leaders, healers, and intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds. Often women or gender-fluid individuals, these shamans held great respect. Early Filipinos also believed in mythological creatures like aswangs, tikbalangs, and duends, beings who filled their stories and warned about dangers or taught moral lessons. Music, dance, and oral poetry were vital parts of culture, used to celebrate, mourn, and pass down history. Traditional instruments like the Kolintang Gong Ensemble created haunting melodies that still echo in Filipino communities today. The arrival of foreign influences. Trade brought more than goods. It also introduced new ideas and religions. Indian cultural and religious influence is evident in artifacts and scripts found in the Philippines, hinting at early Hindu-Buddhist contact. But the most lasting influence before the Europeans arrived came from Islam. Muslim traders and missionaries arrived in the southern Philippines around the 14th century, introducing Islam peacefully. The sultans of Sulu and Maguindanao became powerful leaders, ruling large territories with Islamic law and culture intertwined with native traditions. These Muslim sultanates resisted Spanish colonization fiercely and remain a vital part of Philippine cultural diversity today. Notable early kingdoms and leaders. Several early polities stood out for their power and influence. Tondo was one of the most important pre-colonial kingdoms. Located along the Pasig River near present-day Manila, it controlled vital trade routes and had strong diplomatic ties with China, as recorded in Chinese historical documents. Manila, founded later near Tondo, was a bustling port and political center, ruled by Rajas. It was here that the Spanish first anchored in 1571. In the south, the Sultanate of Sulu controlled vast territories and trade networks, while the Sultanate of Maguineo was known for its military strength and diplomacy. Leaders like Raja Suleiman of Manila and Raja Humaban of Cebu are remembered for their resistance and cooperation during the first encounters with the Spanish. Life and society. A glimpse into daily Filipino life. Daily life in the barangays was a blend of work, community, faith, and celebration. Families lived in bahay kubo, simple, elevated houses made of bamboo and nipa palm, designed to suit the tropical climate and frequent rains. Children learned the ways of their ancestors through storytelling, farming, fishing, and crafts. Festivals were held to honor harvests, warriors, and spirits, marked by music, dance, feasting, and ritual offerings. Respect for elders and community. Solidarity were central values, binding together through cooperation and shared identity. The transition toward Spanish arrival. By the 16th century, the barangay system had reached its peak in social complexity and political organization. Yet, this was a society on the cusp of monumental change. The arrival of Spanish explorers in the early 1500s would challenge these kingdoms in ways they could never have imagined, reshaping the course of Philippine history forever. But the barangay's legacy of leadership, culture, and resilience would continue to live on, woven into the Filipino spirit that endures to this day. From small kinship groups to powerful kingdoms. The age of barangays reveals a complex society rich in culture, leadership, and trade. A true testament to the early Filipino spirit. These foundations would both clash and meld with the forces that followed, as the Philippines stepped onto the global stage of history. Part 3. The arrival of the Spanish. A new era of empire and resistance. The year was 1521, a moment that would forever alter the destiny of the Philippine Islands and its people. A fleet of ships sailed into the shimmering waters of Cebu, commanded by the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan. Sailing under the Spanish flag, this was the dawn of a new era, one of empire, conquest, faith, and fierce resistance. But behind the glittering sails and towering crosses, the clash of worlds had begun. Ferdinand Magellan and contact. Magellan's arrival was the first recorded European contact with the Philippines. The fleet anchored in Cebu, where Raja Humaban ruled over a prosperous and influential barangay. The Spaniards were welcomed and even baptized many locals, including Raja Humaban himself. But the meeting was not peaceful for long. On April 27, 1521, in the Battle of Mactan, Magellan was killed by the warriors of Lapu-Lapu, the chieftain of Mac Island, who fiercely resisted Spanish intrusion. This moment symbolized the beginning of Filipino resistance, a refusal to surrender sovereignty to foreign powers. The Spanish colonial vision. Though Magellan's expedition ended with his death, the Spanish crown was far from abandoning the Philippines. More expeditions arrived, culminating in Miguel López de Legas's 1565 voyage that established the first permanent Spanish settlement in Cebu. From this foothold, the Spanish expanded their control, founding Manila in 1571 and declaring it the colonial capital. The Spanish named the archipelago Las Islas Filipinas after King Philip II of Spain, marking their claim on the islands. Their vision was clear: to expand their empire, spread Christianity, and exploit the island's resources. Colonization, missionaries, governors, and new order. The Spanish introduced a new political and religious order. Catholic missionaries, mostly Augustinians, Franciscans, Jesuits, and Dominicans, arrived with zeal to convert the Filipino population to Christianity. Churches were built across the islands, many of which still stand today as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, like the century-old San Agustin Church in Manila and the stunning Baroque churches in Ilocos and Cebu. Spanish friars held enormous power, influencing not only religion but education, law, and social life. Colonial governors, appointed by the Spanish crown, ruled with absolute authority, imposing taxes, forced labor polo y servicio, and tribute systems that burthened the local population. Traditional barangay leadership was often co-opted or replaced by Spanish officials known as gobernadorcilos, who acted as intermediaries. Life under Spanish rule, the dark side of colonization. The Spanish rule was not a peaceful golden age. The imposition of new taxes, forced labor, and land expropriation caused hardship and resentment. Many Filipinos were forced to work in dangerous conditions, building churches, fortresses, and ships for the galleon trade. The encomienda system granted Spanish settlers rights to collect tribute and labor from natives, often leading to abuse and exploitation. Widespread poverty, famine, and disease swept through many communities, fueling discontent. But beneath the surface of colonial control, Filipino spirit and identity simmered, refusing to be extinguished. The galleon trade. A global connection. One of the most significant legacies of the Spanish era was the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade, established in 1565. For over 250 years, massive galleons sailed between Manila and Acapulco, Mexico, linking Asia to the Americas and Europe. This trade brought Chinese silks, spices, porcelain, and exotic goods to the New World and Europe, making Manila a thriving cosmopolitan hub. Yet the riches flowed mostly to the colonial elite and the Spanish crown, with ordinary Filipinos seeing little benefit. Filipino resistance and revolts. From the very beginning, Filipinos resisted Spanish rule. Lapu-Lapu's victory in Mactan was just the start. Over the centuries, numerous revolts erupted across the islands. In 1607, the Tambalit uprising in Bohol, led by a Babalan priestess, challenged Spanish religious oppression. In 1649, the Sumuroy Rebellion in Samar protested forced labor. The 1762 Silang Revolt, led by Diego and Gabriela, Silang and Ilocos, sought to overthrow Spanish authority. These uprisings showed a fierce refusal to accept foreign domination, though they were often brutally suppressed. The birth of Filipino national consciousness. Despite the oppressive conditions, the 19th century witnessed the awakening of Filipino nationalism. The rise of the Ilustrados, the educated Filipino middle class, brought new ideas of liberty, equality, and self-rule. Filipino students and intellectuals studied in Europe, absorbing liberal philosophies of the Enlightenment. Rizal, the national hero, emerged as a beacon of reform. His novels, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, exposed the corruption and abuses of the Spanish friars and called for peaceful reform. Meanwhile, Bonifacio founded the Katipunan, a secret society dedicated to revolution, signaling a shift from reform to armed struggle, cultural and religious fusion. Spanish colonization also led to a unique fusion of Filipino and Hispanic cultures. Catholicism blended with indigenous beliefs, creating festivals like fiestas that celebrate patron saints alongside native traditions. Spanish architecture, language, and cuisine became part of everyday life. Many Filipino surnames and place names today come from this era. Yet, underlying this cultural synthesis was a strong current of resistance and pride in indigenous identity. The arrival of the Spanish marked a turning point in Philippine history, a dramatic collision of worlds that reshaped the islands forever. It was a time of conquest and conversion, oppression and resilience. The seeds of nationalism and revolution were planted in this era of empire and resistance, a story of a people who would fight for their freedom with courage and unwavering spirit. The journey of the Filipino nation was far from over. In fact, a new chapter was about to begin. Part 4. The Seeds of Revolution, the Birth of Filipino Nationalism. The 19th century was a period of awakening for the Filipino people, a time when whispers of freedom grew louder into the roar of revolution. It was in this era that the seeds of nationalism were sown, through education, literature, secret societies, and the courageous actions of heroes who dared to dream of a free nation. To understand the birth of Filipino nationalism is to understand the heart of a people rising from centuries of oppression toward the light of self-determination. The rise of the Ilustrados, the educated reformers. The Ilustrados were the Filipino intellectuals and middle class who traveled abroad to study in Europe and other parts of the world. They returned with new ideas about democracy, liberty, and human rights. inspired by the Enlightenment and revolutions like those in America and France. Among the most famous ilustrados was Rizal, a man of many talents, a writer, doctor, linguist, and visionary. Rizal's two novels, No Limitangere, Tushme Not Andel, Filibusterismo Terrain of Greed, published in the 1880s, exposed the injustices of Spanish rule and the abuses of the friars. His powerful words awakened a national consciousness, inspiring Filipinos across the islands to seek change. Rizal was not alone. Other prominent figures included Marcelo H. del Pil, Graciano Lopez Hyena, and Antonio Luna, all advocates for peaceful reforms within the colonial system. The propaganda movement. Fighting with the pen? The Ilustrados launched the propaganda movement, a campaign to inform and mobilize Filipinos through newspapers, pamphlets, and speeches. Publications like La Solidaridad became platforms for Filipino voices demanding equality, secularization of the clergy, representation in the Spanish Cortes Parliament, and legal reforms. These efforts sought to change Spanish policy, aiming for peaceful reform rather than outright revolution. However, the Spanish authorities viewed these activities as dangerous, and many reformists faced persecution, exile, or imprisonment. Still, the movement planted important ideas that would fuel the coming revolution. The birth of the Katipunan Revolution by Fire. While many sought peaceful reform, others believed that true freedom could only be won through armed struggle. In 1892, Andres Bonifacio, warehouse clerk from Manila, founded the Kagalang-galangang Katipunan ng Mega-anak ng Gumbayan Simple Noon as the Katipunan. The Katipunan was a secret revolutionary society that aimed to overthrow Spanish rule and establish an independent Philippine republic. Members took oaths of loyalty, pledged to fight for the nation, and planned uprisings across the islands. The Katipunan operated in shadows, its leaders and members risking their lives to keep the flame of revolution alive. The spark of revolution, the cry of Pugad Lawin. The revolution officially began in August 1896, with the cry of Pugad Lawin, when Katipunan members tore their Segulas residence certificates, as a symbol of defiance against Spanish authority. This act was more than rebellion. It was a declaration that Filipinos would no longer be subjects, but free citizens fighting for their nation. The revolution spread rapidly, igniting battles in Manila, Cavite, Bulacan, and beyond. Though initially poorly armed and outnumbered, Filipino revolutionaries displayed remarkable bravery and tactical skill. The key figures of the revolution: Andres Bonifacio, often called the father of the Philippine Revolution, was a fiery and passionate leader. His leadership united disparate groups, inspiring ordinary Filipinos to take up arms for freedom. Emilio Aguinaldo, another prominent revolutionary leader from Cavite, would later become the first president of the Philippines. The struggle was not without internal conflict. Tensions between Bonifacio and Aguinaldo's factions led to tragic consequences, including Bonifacio's execution in 1897. But the fight for independence pushed forward, fueled by the sacrifice of countless Filipinos. The Pact of Biaknabado and temporary exile. In late 1897, weary from continuous warfare, both the Spanish government and Filipino revolutionaries signed the Pact of Biaknabado, agreeing to a truce. Under the pact, revolutionaries went into exile in Hong Kong, receiving monetary compensation from Spain. This period allowed Filipino leaders to regroup and plan their next move, but the desire for true independence remained strong and unresolved. The role of Rizal in his execution. Though Rizal advocated peaceful reform, the Spanish authorities saw him as a threat. In 1896, Rizal was arrested, tried for sedition, and executed by firing squad on December 30th in Manila's Bagumbayan Field, now Luneta Park. His death shocked the nation, turning him into a martyr and further fueling the revolution. Rizal's writings and sacrifice continue to inspire generations of Filipinos, his legacy deeply entwined with the country's struggle for freedom. The revolution's impact on Filipino identity. The seeds of revolution planted a new Filipino identity, one rooted in courage, unity, and the aspiration for self-rule. The Filipino people began to see themselves not as divided barangays or colonial subjects, but as one nation. Language, culture, and shared struggle forged bonds that transcended regional and ethnic differences. The revolution was not only a fight against colonialism, it was the birth of a nation's soul. The 19th century was a time of awakening, where minds were opened, hearts were set ablaze, and the Filipino nation was born. From the pen of Rizal to the secret oaths of the Katipunan, the fight for freedom surged with unstoppable force. The story of revolution is a story of sacrifice, hope, and the unbreakable spirit of a people determined to claim their destiny. Part 5. The Philippine-American War and the Struggle for Sovereignty. Just when the Filipino people dared to dream of full independence, a new storm gathered on the horizon. The Spanish-American War of 1898 unleashed forces that would again reshape the Philippine Islands. This time, introducing a new colonial power, the United States of America. The struggle for sovereignty entered a fierce and tragic new chapter, as Filipinos fought not only to free themselves from Spain, but also to defend their hard-won freedom against a new empire. The end of Spanish rule and the Treaty of Paris, the defeat of Spain by the United States in the Spanish-American War, led to Spain ceding the Philippines to America under the Treaty of Paris. Signed on December 10, 1898. This treaty was signed without Filipino representation, an act that many Filipinos saw as a betrayal. The revolutionary government, led by Emilio Aguinaldo, had declared Philippine independence on June 12, 1898, in Coit, Cavite, a bold proclamation of sovereignty and self-rule, but the world's great powers did not recognize this declaration. Instead, they handed the islands from one colonial master to another. The Philippine-American War begins. The uneasy alliance between Filipino revolutionaries and the United States quickly crumbled. In February 1899, open hostilities erupted between Filipino forces and American troops in Manila. The Philippine-American War was born, a brutal conflict marked by fierce fighting, guerrilla warfare, and immense suffering. Filipino fighters, motivated by fierce nationalism and the dream of freedom, used their intimate knowledge of the terrain to wage a valiant guerrilla campaign against the better-equipped American army. Leaders like General Antonio Luna exemplified the courage and strategic brilliance of the Filipino resistance, the brutality of war, and its toll on Filipinos. The war was devastating. Estimates suggest that between 200,000 to over 1 million Filipinos perished, many civilians succumbing to famine, disease, and violence. American forces employed harsh tactics, including scorched earth policies, concentration camps called reconcentrados, and widespread reprisals against suspected insurgents. The war challenged the very fabric of Filipino society, but also deepened the determination to resist foreign domination. The conflict would last officially until 1902, but resistance persisted for years afterward in various forms. Emilio Aguinaldo and the struggle for leadership. Emilio Aguinaldo, the first president of the Philippine Republic, led the resistance against the Americans with resilience and determination. His leadership was both celebrated and contested. Internal divisions and rivalries challenged the unity of the revolutionary movement. In 1901, Aguinaldo was captured by American forces, a blow that symbolized the decline of organized armed resistance. Yet even after his capture, the spirit of independence did not fade. The American colonial period. Changes and challenges. After the war, the United States established colonial rule over the Philippines. Unlike the Spaniards, the Americans introduced a system focused on public education, infrastructure development, and political reforms. But under American control, English became the language of instruction, new schools and universities were founded, and democratic institutions were slowly introduced. Yet, political power remained in American hands, and the promise of benevolent assimilation was met with skepticism by many Filipinos. The struggle for true independence continued, now through political channels, activism, and cultural assertion. The rise of Filipino political movements. During the American period, Filipinos organized political parties and movements to demand greater autonomy and independence. The Philippine Assembly was created in 1907, allowing limited Filipino participation in governance. Leaders like Manuel L. Quezon, Sergio Osmiga, and Claro M. Recto emerged as key figures advocating for self. The Jones Act of 1916 declared the U.S. commitment to eventual Philippine independence, a hopeful but distant promise. Meanwhile, underground movements and cultural renaissance preserved Filipino identity and national pride. Cultural and social changes under American rule. American influence reshaped Filipino society in many ways. New roads, bridges, and hospitals were built. The postal system and public health initiatives improved daily life. American popular culture, sports like basketball, and democratic ideals found fertile ground. However, these changes also created tensions between traditional Filipino culture and Western modernity. The period was marked by a complex blend of adaptation, resistance, and negotiation of identity. The Philippine-American War and the subsequent American colonial period were times of hardship, transformation, and relentless struggle. Filipinos endured war's devastation, but also laid the foundations for modern nationhood, through education, political activism, and cultural resilience. Though sovereignty was denied, the Filipino people never gave up their quest for freedom, a flame that would burn brighter in the decades to come. Part 6. The Commonwealth Era and the Road to Independence. As the 20th century unfolded, the Philippines entered a new chapter, a period of cautious hope and determined preparation for self-rule. The Commonwealth Era marked the gradual transfer of political power from the United States to Filipinos themselves, setting the stage for full independence. This era was a crucible where Filipino identity, governance, and resilience were tested and strengthened, paving the road to freedom. Establishment of the Philippine Commonwealth, 1935. On November 15, 1935, the Philippines was granted semi-autonomous status as the Commonwealth of the Philippines, with a constitution modeled after the United States. Manuel L. Quezon was inaugurated as the first president of the Commonwealth, a charismatic leader known as the father of the national language for championing Tagalog as the foundation of Filipino identity. The Commonwealth government was given authority over internal affairs, while the U.S. retained control over foreign policy and defense. This arrangement was intended to be a 10-year transition period leading to full independence, a hopeful promise amid uncertain times. Political and social reforms. Under the Commonwealth, sweeping reforms aimed to modernize the country and prepare it for nationhood. Education was expanded and improved, focusing on literacy and civic instruction. The public school system grew rapidly, producing a new generation of educated Filipinos. Economic policies encouraged agricultural development and industrialization, seeking to reduce dependence on imports and foreign capital. Infrastructure projects built roads, bridges, and government buildings, shaping the modern landscape of the Philippines. Quezon's administration also pushed social reforms, including labor rights and women's suffrage. Granted in 1937, a milestone for Filipino women, the national language and cultural identity. One of the most lasting legacies of the Commonwealth period was the promotion of a national language. Quezon believed that language was key to uniting the diverse archipelago's many ethnic groups. In 1937, Tagalog was chosen as the basis for the national language, later known as Filipino. This move fostered a sense of shared identity and pride, helping bridge cultural divides and strengthen nationhood. The looming shadow of war. World War II approaches. As the Commonwealth government worked tirelessly to build a nation, dark clouds gathered beyond the horizon. The outbreak of World War II and the expansion of Japanese imperial ambitions in Asia threatened the Philippines. Fragile peace and progress. The strategic location of the islands made them a key battleground in the Pacific. Filipino and American forces began preparing defenses, but few could predict the brutal tests that lay ahead. Japanese invasion and occupation 1941 to 1945. On December 8, 1941, just hours after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japanese forces launched a massive assault on the Philippines. The subsequent occupation was marked by hardship, suffering, and fierce resistance. The fall of Bataan and Corregidor in 1942 led to the infamous Bataan Death March, where thousands of Filipino and American prisoners were forced to endure unimaginable cruelty. Despite brutal repression, Filipino guerrilla groups continued to fight, disrupting Japanese control and keeping the flame of resistance alive. The war devastated the islands, but it also united Filipinos across regions and classes in a common cause: the return of Allied forces and liberation. In 1944, General Douglas MacArthur fulfilled his famous promise, "I shall return." American and Filipino forces launched a massive campaign to liberate the Philippines from Japanese occupation. Battles raged across Luzon, Leyte, and Mindanao, culminating in the liberation of Manila in 1945, though the city was left in ruins. The war left scars. Over 1 million Filipinos died, and much of the country's infrastructure was destroyed. Yet, it also solidified the Filipino-American alliance and the resolve for independence. The path to full independence? After World War II, the Philippines was devastated but determined. On July 4, 1946, the United States officially recognized the independence of the Republic of the Philippines. Manuel Roxas became the first president of the independent republic, tasked with rebuilding the nation. This marked the fulfillment of a long and arduous journey, from ancient barangays to colonial struggles, revolution, war, and finally, freedom. But independence was just the beginning of a new chapter filled with challenges and opportunities. The Commonwealth era was a time of hope, resilience, and transformation. It was the forging ground of Filipino identity and statehood, tested by war and adversity. The road to independence was long and hard-fought, a testament to the Filipino spirit's enduring strength. As the nation stepped into sovereignty, the future awaited with promise and uncertainty alike. Part 7. The Republic and Contemporary Philippines. Challenges and Triumphs. With the dawn of independence on July 4, 1946, the Philippines embarked on a new journey as a sovereign nation, free to shape its own destiny. But freedom brought with it a complex web of challenges and triumphs. From rebuilding a war-ravaged land to navigating political upheavals, economic struggles, and cultural evolution, the Filipino people continued to show resilience, creativity, and an unbreakable spirit. This is the story of the Republic and Contemporary Philippines, a nation rising through adversity and striving toward progress. Post-war, reconstruction, and early challenges. The immediate post-war years were focused on reconstruction. Cities lay in ruins, infrastructure destroyed, and the economy shattered. The government under President Manuel Roxas faced enormous tasks: rebuilding roads, schools, and hospitals, restoring agriculture, and stabilizing the economy. The Bell Trade Act and the Parity Rights Amendment tied the Philippine economy closely to the United States, sparking debates over true economic independence. Social inequalities and land issues also began to fuel unrest in the countryside. Political developments and struggles. the Philippines embraced democracy with its 1935 constitution still in effect, holding regular elections and building institutions. However, political life was often marked by factionalism, patronage, and corruption. Presidents like Elpidio Quirino, Ramon Magsaysay, Carlos P. Garcia, and Diosdado Macapagal grappled with governance, economic growth, and national security. Magsaysay's presidency is remembered for his connection to the masses and efforts to suppress the communist insurgency, known as the Hukbalahat movement. The Marcos era, a legacy of leadership, development, and controversy. The story of Ferdinand Marcos is one of remarkable ambition, transformative leadership, and complex legacy, a chapter in Philippine history that still sparks debate and fascination today. When Marcos rose to power in 1965, he was seen by many as one of the country's most intelligent and visionary leaders. A scholar and lawyer, Marcos had a clear goal: to modernize the Philippines and propel it toward progress on the world stage. During his presidency, the Philippines witnessed unprecedented infrastructure development, from the construction of roads and bridges that connected remote regions to monumental projects like the Cultural Center of the Philippines, the Philippine Heart Center, and the North Luzon Expressway. Marcos's administration aimed to build a nation capable of competing in a new era. His Green Revolution program sought to transform Filipino agriculture. By introducing modern farming techniques and expanding irrigation, Marcos helped increase rice and corn production, pushing the country closer to food self-sufficiency during his time. This initiative empowered many Filipino farmers and rural communities. Energy development was another priority. Projects like the Bataan nuclear power plant and various hydroelectric dams were launched to address the growing power needs of a developing economy. While some of these projects became subjects of controversy later, their ambition reflected Marcos's focus on industrialization and modernization. In foreign policy, Marcos was a skilled diplomat. He was the first Philippine president to establish formal ties with China in 1975, diversifying the country's international relationships at a time when global politics were shifting dramatically. Balancing relations with both the United States and other global powers, Marcos sought to secure the Philippines' position amid Cold War dynamics. Education and healthcare saw significant attention under his rule. The construction of new schools, hospitals, and specialized medical centers demonstrated a commitment to improving the quality of life for many Filipinos. Institutions like the Lung Center and National Kidney and Transplant Institute remain testaments to that vision. Yet Marcos's era was not without controversy. The declaration of martial law in 1972 marked a shift towards authoritarian rule, leading to suppression of dissent and accusations of human rights abuses. The 1973 Constitution, while intended to modernize governance, was also a tool that extended his stay in power. The People Power Revolution of 1986, which ended his presidency, is often hailed as a victory for democracy. However, some view it as a complex turning point that brought political instability and economic challenges in its wake. The period after Marcos saw the dismantling of many of his initiatives, some argue prematurely, affecting long-term development. Today, the Marcos legacy remains a subject of ongoing reevaluation. The infrastructure and development projects from his administration continue to serve millions, while debates about governance, leadership, and historical narrative persist in the national conversation. Ferdinand Marcos was undeniably one of the most intelligent and ambitious presidents the Philippines has had, a leader whose vision left lasting marks on the country, even as his rule became a cautionary tale about the balance of power. Understanding the Marcos era requires looking beyond black and white portrayals to appreciate the complexities, achievements, and lessons of a pivotal time in Philippine history. The return to democracy and the challenges ahead. Corazon Aquino, widow of assassinated opposition leader Ninoy Aquino, became the first female president and symbol of democratic restoration. The new government faced enormous challenges: rebuilding democratic institutions, tackling insurgencies, addressing economic disparities, and healing a divided nation. Successive administrations struggled to balance progress with persistent issues: poverty, political dynasties, corruption, and natural disasters. The post-Aquino presidents, shaping the modern Philippines. Fidel B. and Ramos, 1992 to 1998. The reformer and unifier. After the historic People Power Revolution that restored democracy, the Philippines faced the monumental task of rebuilding. Enter Fidel V. Ramos, former general and defense secretary known for his calm leadership and unifying vision. Ramos steered the nation through economic reforms and infrastructure development. His administration focused on liberalizing the economy, attracting foreign investment, and modernizing key sectors such as telecommunications and energy. Programs like the Philippine Power Reform aimed to stabilize the electricity supply, which had long plagued industries and households alike. Politically, Ramos was a bridge builder. He worked to quell long-standing insurgencies and foster peace agreements with various rebel groups, paving the way for relative political stability. Under his watch, the Philippines experienced consistent economic growth. rising investor confidence, and renewed national pride. Joseph Estrada 199-82001, the People's President, known affectionately as EROP. Joseph Estrada rose to prominence as a charismatic actor-turned-politician, celebrated for his connection with the common people. Estrada's presidency focused heavily on poverty alleviation and social programs aimed at uplifting the marginalized. His populist appeal resonated with millions who saw in him a champion for their struggles. However, Estrada's term was marred by allegations of corruption, which culminated in his impeachment trial. The controversy fueled public unrest, eventually leading to his ouster in the Second People Power movement in 2001, a testament to the Filipino people's continued insistence on accountability and good governance. Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, 2001-2010, the economic stabilizer. Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, daughter of a former president, assumed office during a period of political turbulence. Despite the rocky start, her administration focused on economic recovery and modernization. Arroyo oversaw a period of steady economic growth, infrastructure expansion, and fiscal reforms. Her government launched key initiatives in transportation, power generation, and information technology, sectors vital to the country's competitiveness. Yet, her presidency faced serious challenges, including multiple coup attempts and allegations of corruption. Despite this, many credit her administration with laying the groundwork for the Philippines' later economic rise. Benigno Aquino, 2010-2016, the reformist, son of Corazon Aquino, and a symbol of democratic renewal. Benigno Noyno Aquino III brought hopes of transparency and reform. His administration was marked by significant anti-corruption campaigns and efforts to improve government services. Under Aquino, the Philippines achieved notable economic growth, reduced poverty rates, and improved credit ratings, earning recognition as one of Asia's rising economies. Aquino's leadership was also defined by major legal victories, such as the arbitration case against China over territorial disputes in the South China Sea. Asserting the Philippines' sovereignty on the global stage, Rodrigo Duterte 2016-2022, the controversial strongman. Rodrigo Duterte, former mayor of Davao City, shook the political landscape with his tough stance on crime and unorthodox leadership style. His administration launched a controversial and aggressive campaign against illegal drugs, which polarized public opinion domestically and internationally. Supporters praised his focus on law and order, while critics condemned alleged human rights violations. Duterte also pursued an independent foreign policy, strengthening ties with China and Russia, while re-examining relations with traditional allies. His Build infrastructure program aimed to accelerate modernization and boost economic development. Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. 2022-present, the return of a legacy. In 2022, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., son of the former president, was elected president, marking the return of the Marcos family to the highest office. His presidency has focused on economic recovery following the COVID-19 pandemic, infrastructure development, and national unity. Marcos Jr. promotes a vision of unity and progress, seeking to bridge historical divides and harness the country's potential. Though his leadership remains under scrutiny due to his family's controversial past, supporters see him as a pragmatic leader working to stabilize the nation and move forward. Economic growth and modernization. Despite difficulties, the Philippines made significant strides in economic development. The growth of the service sector, overseas Filipino workers' remittances, and the rise of the business process outsourcing BPO industry transformed the economy. Urban centers like Metro Manila, Cebu, and Davao became bustling hubs of commerce, culture, and innovation. Education and technology advances expanded opportunities for many Filipinos, fueling a new generation of entrepreneurs and professionals. Culture and identity in contemporary Philippines. The Philippines today is a vibrant tapestry of tradition and modernity. Festivals, music, art, and literature celebrate the rich heritage inherited from centuries of history. At the same time, global influences mix with local creativity, producing a dynamic cultural scene that resonates worldwide. Filipino values of family, hospitality, faith, and resilience continue to define the nation's character. Overseas, Filipino workers, heroes beyond borders. One of the most remarkable stories of contemporary Philippines is the global Filipino diaspora. Millions of overseas Filipino workers (OFWs) serve in healthcare, construction, education, and many other fields around the world. Their remittances form a vital pillar of the national economy and connect the Philippines to the global community. These OFWs are often called modern-day heroes, sacrificing their own comfort to support families and fuel national progress, natural disasters, and resilience. The Philippines is prone to typhoons, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods. Natural disasters have repeatedly tested the nation's resilience. Tragedies like Typhoon Haiyan in 2013 devastated communities, but also revealed the Filipino spirit of bayanihan, communal unity and mutual aid, shining brightly amid hardship. The Philippines today, Challenges and hopes. The country continues to face significant challenges: poverty, inequality, political reforms, environmental concerns, and the quest for lasting peace in conflict-affected areas. Yet the story of the Philippines is ultimately one of hope, determination, and progress. A young and vibrant population, rich natural resources, and a proud cultural heritage fuel the dream of a brighter future. The Philippines stands at a crossroads, with the lessons of history guiding the way forward. From the first whispers of ancient barangays to the stirring cries of revolution, the trials of war, and the triumphs of independence, the Philippines' history is a tapestry woven with courage, struggle, and unyielding spirit. This story is not just of a nation, it is of its people, their dreams, and their relentless quest for freedom and dignity. As we continue to write new chapters today, may we honor the past and embrace the future with hope and unity. If this journey through time has stirred your heart and curiosity, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the history of the Philippines, a story of courage, resistance, and hope that still resonates today. From ancient barangays to revolution and beyond, the Filipino spirit shines bright across centuries. If you were amazed by these untold stories, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with friends who love history and legends. Don't forget to follow KOOL Legends History Stories World for more captivating tales from around the globe. Stories that will spark your curiosity and keep you coming back for more. Every story brings history alive. Comment below with your favorite part of this epic story, or any legends you want us to explore next. Join us as we explore the legends, mysteries, and tales that shape our world. Mabuo! Yan Filipinas! Long live the Philippines!